I'll do an intro. So, this is a special moment. This is a historic moment. This is the inaugural episode.
This is huge.
This is where it all begins. So, this is the first episode of working title, No Pain, No Way.
No pain, no way,
The
baby.
show where we watch every single John Wayne, every John Wayne Western in order of release, one by one, from 1930 to 1977. We just started our adventure with The Big Trail, released 1930. Who was the director again?
The director is one Raoul Walsh.
Raoul Walsh.
Yes.
A fantastic man.
Yes.
So, this was an interesting one. This is John Wayne's first starring role, actually. Not just his first Western. This is his debut. This is actually the first time he was on screen pictured as John Wayne, that being his name.
Yes.
So that was a big one. What'd you think about the movie? First off, let's set the scene.
Well, it is following the Oregon Trail, and goddamn, it's fucking realistic as shit.
Yeah, it's a very opening scene.
Right.
We have literally thousands of extras roaming around this small town in Missouri. I think they shot that in California.
Probably.
But just thousands of them, and you're just introduced to all of the main characters so fast. Like, breakneck pace.
Right.
Opening shot, you've got this old man named Zeke, who, as I said while we were watching the movie, was absolutely fucking born to play Abraham Lincoln. He looks just like him. And then, bang, John Wayne shows up. Breck Coleman, which is a crazy name. Breck? Who's Breck? Breck Coleman.
Dressed in all white. Yeah.
All white, covered head to toe in tassels. Never seen a man with more tassels.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
He was fresh. Then who comes next? Then we get to meet Ruth. Do we see Ruth next on the riverboat?
I don't remember.
I believe it was Ruth, because that's when our favorite character,
Wendy. Are we talking about Wendy, the animal guy?
No, we're talking about Sock Man.
Oh yes.
No, we're talking about Sock Man.
How could I forget?
You meet the love interest.
Right. Yeah.
Right? And then the real star of the movie comes in.
Yes.
Gus. Gus is the comic relief character. And there's a beautiful opening scene where he's getting conned by the villain of the movie, Mr. Thorpe, who is pure evil. He has a massive black hat, and he's just the first time you see him, he literally blocks half of the screen with his hat. It's such a big hat, because it has to hold all of its evil, thoughts and actions. Yes. And then we learn he's conning poor man Gus.
Yeah.
And Gus has to pull his change out of just an unbelievably long sock.
Comically large sock.
Just a comically large sock. We're talking 3 to 4 feet of sock. Pure sock action. And it's a beautiful sight. It's a wonderful thing. I think Gus is cracked in the head. I think something's up with him.
Yes.
But he lives with his mother-in-law and his wife, and some other woman of indeterminate relation. She doesn't speak. Then we get to see the other villains. No, before the other villains, the whole scene. Micah, the mud scene. Okay. This is an insane summary. But Micah, can you please tell the folks at home about the mud scene.
Yes, Gus was, he's showing his chivalrous side, right?
He was so cordial. What a kind man.
He was leading some ladies. He was picking them up, carrying them up across some muddy bit of area. But he was trying to carry his mother-in-law over, but she refused.
Yeah, and while we're watching this, we're both thinking, he's going to pick her up, and trip, and drop her in the mud.
Absolutely.
That's the obvious joke.
Right.
The only joke that could possibly be there is, oops, she fell in the mud.
Yes.
And what happens?
She decides to go along herself, and she falls about ribs deep in mud.
She puts foot on ground and then
sinks.
Instantaneously falls to her fucking shoulders in mud. Bear in mind, this is like, it's like wet dirt. It's not that much mud.
No.
But
it's just a sinkhole.
It's such a perfect gag. And I was so surprised by it. I'm still laughing at it. What an amazing gag. She's so confident. She probably says, I walk across my own mud. One step from this little porch she's on, 1 foot into the mud, and instantly sinks. That was a real highlight for me in the movie.
That was highlight.
Then, I believe we get introduced to the most evil man in history, which is Red Flag.
Red Flag, yes.
Who is the second of 3 villains that are in this movie.
Yes.
And he is a very overweight man with greasy hair and dirty clothes, eating meat with his fists.
Yes.
And he has a set of fake teeth, like the actor's wearing fake teeth, that like crackhead teeth. Like he's got like 4 teeth up top and 3 in the bottom, and some of them are like sharpened points. He's like cartoonishly evil. He's so evil, and the whole movie, it's like, oh man, is this the guy? Is he a murderer? Like Breck Coleman, John Wayne. He's trying to figure out, is this guy a murderer? I'm like, of course he is. Of course he's a murderer. As a viewer, you know instantaneously this man did it.
Right.
He goes to like 2 scenes. He's like, that Breck Coleman's he's learning too much about us. He says this to his friend Lopez, the third villain in the movie.
Yes.
Just a Mexican man.
Just a Mexican.
And you can tell because he wears a poncho and a sombrero, and he's occasionally speaks in Spanish.
Does he even?
Yeah, he does. Which the subtitles graciously translated as speaks in Spanish. But yeah, that's the introduction. Do you have any comments? Have we missed anything about this introduction?
I don't think so.
'Cause it's just beautiful.
It is.
So during this whole scene, basically, like, a farce happens. Some misunderstandings. Some magic is at play. Where Breck Coleman, Red Flag, Lopez, Mr. Thorpe, and the love interest all end up on this wagon train heading to a mystical valley in Oregon, which has never been settled.
Yes.
That is where the movie really starts, is when this wagon train starts moving. And the second real highlight character of the movie comes in. Micah, tell us about Duck Guy.
Duck Guy, yes, Duck Guy. Mr. Animal Expression himself, Windy. Just named Windy.
His name... Now, I want to clarify. Not Wendy, but with an I.
Yes.
Windy.
Windy, yes.
Excellent. Please carry on.
I don't even know what they were talking about when they introduced this character. I wasn't really paying attention. I was starting to lose a bit of interest, but his duck impression reeled me back in.
No, we gotta clarify again. He doesn't sound like a duck.
He doesn't.
It's a Donald Duck impression.
It is a Donald Duck
And it's fucking perfect. This guy, for no reason, throughout the movie, for like 3/4 of the movie just about, he will randomly show up and either make a cat noise or a Donald Duck noise.
Those are the only two noises he makes.
That's it. He barely speaks. He has one line which is real gold,
Yes.
but we'll get to later in the movie. Actually no, I'll do it now. He's someone asked him how many pancakes he's eaten, and he just throws out 84. And his friend instantly goes, well, it's about to be 85, and throws another pancake at him. He's an absolute hero. He's the real hero of the movie. We're still 10 minutes into this 2-hour movie.
Yeah.
And I'm just now realizing, looking at our notes, those are the two brightest points in this film.
Yeah.
It's a real front-loaded movie.
It is.
It's real front-loaded. So, okay, the wagon train sets off, and then this is where we get our first experience that I believe we will have in every John Wayne movie, which is the incredibly tolerant and accurate representation of the native tribes of North America.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so this isn't great. This isn't great. All in one scene, we've got the Cheyenne tribe being
in Missouri.
In Missouri. Maybe they were there. Maybe they were there at the time. However, I will say they are dressed as the Sioux.
Yes.
Wearing Apache headdresses.
Mm-hmm.
Doing war hollers that are just completely invented. And they're all just hooting and hollering. And they immediately, John Wayne says, they want a powwow. Let me go speak to their chief. I'm friends with Black Elk.
Yep. Infamous Black Elk.
And he goes up there and he has a one-on-one powwow. Which, that's not what a powwow is. A powwow is when two tribes come together for a very specific ceremony of meeting and greeting and like trading, and it's a whole ordeal.
Right.
But here it's whenever you conversate
Yes.
with a native person, you gotta sit down for a powwow, smoke them to peace pipe. That's not me, John Wayne did it. So that is the first taste, and that's just sprinkled deliciously throughout this movie as just subtle digs at indigenous people. One of them is that they occasionally the film will be subtitled "Speaks in Native."
Yes.
And that will be John Wayne going and then flailing his arms together. He'll whistle and then like click his mouth like he's trying to speak Zulu.
Right.
And then doing American Sign Language to them. And he uses this to communicate with every tribe he comes across. All of them. Which is wonderful. Although, also, it's just the Cheyenne.
Yeah.
If you see a native person in this movie, they are called the Cheyenne tribe. From Missouri to Oregon. the only people they encounter. And that was a really, I felt really heartfelt scene. And I think it was really inclusive and tolerant. It wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. Because they were actually native people, at the very least.
That surprised me.
And I checked. They were Cheyenne.
They were.
The actors. Not all of them, but most of them were. Which, I was surprised.
You can't. They at least tried.
They tried. And I'll give them that. So they leave this powwow where John Wayne says, "Don't worry, they don't want war. They'll give us peace if we walk through their lands and don't settle." Fair play, John.
Right.
Normal thing to say. But he carries on. He does not finish there. And then he says, "Now their women and children will come to beg.
Yep.
Treat them nice, and they won't take your scalps." He says something like that. He doesn't say
It's-
take your scalps, but
Something along
you
those
won't
lines.
have any trouble.
Right.
Come on now. No, they wouldn't. That's an insane thing to say.
Yes.
What an outrageous... You have this massive, powerful tribe, the Cheyenne. That's what the movie calls them. And they clearly are wealthy and powerful. They have, apparently, as described by the movie, innumerable horses.
Right.
Why would they beg? Other than, oh wow, look at how nice these white people are,
Exactly.
giving them all these food and goods. So that's a mark against the movie, I think. That part doesn't really hold up too well.
No. Oh man.
So the wagon train starts up again, yes?
Yes.
And then we get the cliff.
The cliff.
The cliff
Oh,
scene.
That's right. The cliff.
Now, I'm not too studied in the Oregon Trail
No.
and wagon trains. So this might be a real thing. And I'm willing to accept it if it is. But visually, this is the craziest shit that happens in the movie. What we're talking about is there's a scene where they are forced to lower their wagons down the side of a cliff via a rope.
Yeah. And all of their hundreds, probably thousands of cattle, horses, goats.
Oh, there's there's so many. If we're shooting the film, do you want to know? Here's a bit of trivia here. Trivia time.
All right,
This is the trivia time section.
Okay.
We'll sneak it in here. Micah,
Yes.
you already know this,
I think I
but take a stab. How many extras were used in this movie?
I'm gonna guess it was something like 20,000.
You're exactly right. There were 20,000 extras. And I just want to sit on this for a moment. 20,000 extras. That's so fucking many.
That brings me up to a point. That made me start to realize why this movie has a budget of $1.25 million, which is insane.
That is beautiful that it was that much. I found out something interesting too. We're gonna carry on with trivia time.
Trivia time.
Trivia time. How many cows
Oh,
do you think this film had? We saw at least 100.
yes. Was it 300?
It was 1,800.
Oh my God. That many cows?
It was almost just shy of 2,000 cows. And Micah, how many horses
Oh my
do
God.
you think this film had?
3,000.
It was the same amount as cows.
Same?
It was the same amount, so another 2,000 horses.
I suppose.
2,000. And then just 500 buffalo for fun.
For fun. Of
For
course.
fun. Which is
As-
fantastic.
As they're probably near extinct by now.
Now that
Yeah.
it's because of the movie, they all died in the
Yes,
shooting.
exactly. That's great.
And now it's just fantastic. But yes, so they're lowering down the cliff. Not only all their wagons, but you get to see the beauty of a cow. These poor fucking cows, real living cows, being lowered off an actual real cliff
Yeah.
by like hemp rope and logs. and they're freaking out. These cops are freaking the fuck out because they're being lowered off of like a 60-foot cliff. And they're clearly not having a good time.
Absolutely not.
You do get a good scene of one of the wagons falling off the cliff and crumbling into fucking dust.
Yeah, was it 2 wagons?
It was
two
two.
wagons.
It was two.
Yeah.
It was 2 wagons. And you get another great line from Gus,
Gus.
where he was hoping and fucking praying this poor man that his mother-in-law was on that wagon, but to no avail. She lived.
She lives in true comedic fashion. There she was, right behind him that whole time.
The whole time.
The whole time.
Not only that, but this is the opening of the birth scene because it turns out Gus has had twins.
Yes.
A boy and a girl. We never see them. We
No.
never see them, but they are birthed. And then, I guess the movie was trying to be poetic.
Right.
And say, look, Gus has had children. Life on the trail. And then you get to see a shot of a horse with a foal. What a beautiful thing. Cut it there, director. What's his name?
Oh, yes, Mr. Raoul Walsh.
Walsh, director Walsh, Johnny Walsh, Raoul. Can I call you Raoul? Cut it there. Beautiful. What a little piece of cinematography from the 30s.
Yes.
You're ahead of your time in subtle cinematic making. No, he says, that's too subtle. I'm going to cut to a pig with all of her kids. And you're like, okay, alright, that's another one.
And a cat and,
And
all
then
the
he
kittens.
then he cuts to a to a cat with her kittens.
Yes.
And he says, one more. And then you see a dog with her puppies. And also a woman breastfeeding a baby. And he doesn't like subtlety. He wants to really drive home this idea that really he gotten one. He's like, let me do it 8 more times. Just to make sure we don't leave anything out here.
Yes.
And that was really fantastic thing. Now, during this whole section, we've kind of skipped over the character moments because there's not a lot of them.
No.
Characters are very one-dimensional. Thorpe, one of the evil guys, the evil man with the giant hat, if you remember from earlier.
Yes.
Throughout this series of events and along the trail, he is trying to win the interests of Ruth, the love interest, who, in turn, does not like him or main character John Wayne, Breck Coleman. And that causes a rivalry between Breck Coleman and Thorpe. That's important because they have this like violent energy. Like, I'm gonna stab you in the throat. Breck Coleman kind of acts like that because he is not the fastest gun in the West. He's the fastest
knife.
He is the fastest knife in the West. He won't shoot you, but he'll throw a knife at you.
Between the eyes.
Right between, he could stab, this is, I believe I'm quoting exactly here, he could throw a knife into a man's heart from 20 yards.
Holy smokes.
That's his superpower. And that scares the shit out of everyone in the movie, is how good he is at throwing knives. In fact, one of the villains at one point says, I can handle fists. I can handle feet like kicks. I can even handle guns. But that knife of his, it's a wicked thing.
I like how in the scene when they're showing off his knife throwing skills, he's throwing it like 5 feet at a wooden pole in front of him.
No, he's throwing it, but it's supposed to be like, ooh, it went just over the guy's head.
Oh, right.
But you can tell it's a forced perspective thing. The pole's like 7 feet behind the guy. He's clearly not sitting in front of it. And you can tell because John Wayne goes to the pole and pulls them out,
Yeah.
destroying the illusion.
Exactly.
If he didn't do that, it looks really good. I was worried for the guy with the first one, because it's like an inch
Right
over his
there.
head.
Right.
But then they destroy their own illusions for whatever reason. So finally, rivalry having been set up, Flag, the most evil man in history with the broken teeth,
Yes.
tells Thorpe to go and kill Breck Coleman with his guns. And so we see disaster. Breck Coleman's walking into the woods alone and he doesn't have his guns. Then Thorpe, standing 20 feet behind him, raises his pistol to shoot him.
Not one pistol, two pistols.
Two. He's got both barrels.
Yep.
Both barrels. When suddenly
Our hero.
Zeke fucking cuts Thorpe down where he stands, shooting him point blank range with a rifle. The high powered rifle. Shoots him like in the throat. And he dies instantly. What a champion. We love Zeke. He's a great guy.
Big Zeke.
Big Zeke. He's a classic guy. Kills him instantly in cold blood. And there's a bit of a farce. There's a trial that happens about did Breck Coleman kill this man? And there's like a whole lot of emotions, but it's solved within, I want to say, 45 seconds.
Yeah.
It's really not that big of a plot. He's just, like, Thorpe gets murdered, and they're like, you know what? Thorpe was pretty evil. He deserved it, and then they move on, frontier justice. Now, at the moment, Breck Coleman has not been made out to be a badass. He's just been a guy.
Yeah.
He hasn't done anything insane. He's not a massive hero. We haven't been told about any of his previous feats. Literally, he's just a good scout who can speak Native American languages. Or at least
with his hands.
With his hands. He's very good at gesticulating. So, this is where we get the big action scene of the movie.
It's very big, very long, too.
It's such a long action scene, but it's insane. And I kind of think this scene makes the rest of the movie worth it, just on a visual level. Because you've got the iconic wagon train attack scene, where the wagons all form a massive circle with like 500 animals in the middle running around going fucking crazy because of all the explosions, as a massive group of mounted Native Americans are circling the wagon, and guns and arrows are fucking flying everywhere. Bullets are flying.
Many natives are shown to be dead.
Yeah, it is a massacre.
It is a massacre.
It absolutely is a blatant massacre of Native Americans just defending their land.
Right.
And the movie makes it out to see these poor settlers. I feel so bad for the men who died.
Yeah. One man is shown to be injured.
We see one man on screen, one or two on screen get injured, but at the end, roughly 40 to 50 people died.
Plus children.
And particularly one character died that I believe affected you quite a lot, Micah.
This hit me hard. You guys recall Wendy himself.
Windy. Duck guy. Champion of the beginning of the movie.
Cat guy. This is the guy that reeled me back into this film. He does lose his life in the fight against the Native Americans, but he is not shown to be dead. His death was off screen. This shit pissed me off so much. So much. How can you just kill off a character like that?
It's great. You find out he's dead by Zeke standing over a grave going, me and Wendy was, like getting ready to cry, talking about how they're best friends before Breck Coleman leads him off. That's it. That's all he gets.
He did Wendy dirty, dog.
That's all Wendy gets. He's such a a staple. He shows up like 5 or 6 times at the movie to
Right?
do his goofy ass animal impressions, or like to fart or to do something weird,
Something fucking great.
and they just kill him
Just dead.
off screen. I don't know if maybe he couldn't show up to filming, if something got lost in the script. I have no idea, but it's a real jarring scene. Now, following this epic action scene, I don't want to hype up the movie too much. We get the worst part of the movie. After what is arguably the visual peak,
Yeah.
we get the worst part, which is these. It's the world's longest scene I think I've experienced in any movie, which is the mud scene.
The mud scene.
It is just wagons
grueling.
stuck in mud and horses stuck in
Horses
mud.
stuck.
And
Cows
it's
floating
raining.
down the fucking river.
Yeah, cows floating away for what is probably in reality 10 minutes,
Yeah.
but it genuinely felt like 20 to 30.
It was so long.
It's so long, and it's just the same. There's no dialogue, there's no action. It's just people pulling things out of mud, people pulling things out of mud. Oh my god, the wagon got stuck in mud, a little bit more mud, some rain, and then mud again. It's genuinely abysmal. And then the creme de la creme, post mud, they journey a little bit farther, and then everyone in the wagon train is like, fuck this. I'm so tired of being on a wagon train. Let's turn back. It's too hard. We're gonna die. Because they've been climbing into these mountains. Post mud, they're climbing into the mountains. It's blizzarding. They're gonna freeze to death. When John Wayne, Breck Coleman, comes out, and he gives a speech talking about how fucking awesome it is that we colonized America, and that we're not gonna stop in Kansas, we're not gonna stop in Kentucky, we're going all the way to the West, because no one has ever stopped this breed of man from marching into the sunset.
We love Manifest Destiny,
He
baby.
fucking loves it. He preaches it to the camera for a solid minute or two. It's like his big character moment.
Right.
And it's incredible. Now, let me throw this in. We've prefaced this. Breck Coleman has not done anything yet.
No.
In the movie, Breck Coleman has not directly, he didn't kill Thorpe, that was Zeke.
Mm-hmm.
Pacifying the natives, they were already peaceful. He just spoke with them. He's done nothing impressive. When we get a couple impressive lines, Ruth, the love interest, has started falling for Breck because the other one is fucking dead. So there's really only one option. So she starts to fall in love with him, and she is talking with her younger sister. I believe she calls it her honey baby. That is the description. Honey child, honey baby. That is the little sister. I think her Christian name, because she's not called anything else. This little girl is praying, and she says, "Dear God, please protect my brother and my sister and me." And then Ruth says, "Why aren't you gonna ask God to protect Breck Coleman?" To which the daughter responds, "Zeke told me Breck Coleman doesn't need God's protection. He doesn't need God. He's beyond the powers of God Almighty." And that is a fantastic line, because he has not done anything. He hasn't done anything impressive at all. And then following this, Breck Coleman himself is talking about how he needs to fucking murder what's his name? Flack and Lopez. The two villains. The two villains at this point have run away from the wagon train because everyone realized, oh my god, The fucking evil guys are fucking evil. This is crazy. The evil guys that have been acting evil the whole time, they're evil.
Whoa.
It's amazing. Where Brett Coleman basically gives this speech saying, this is the frontier. This is frontier justice. I am justice, basically. He's talking about how he is judge, jury, and fucking executioner out here. And he's frontier law. And law is justice. And justice is Brett Coleman. And so he's going after these two in the middle of a blizzard.
Right.
Now, he decides to go out, and Ruth is like, no, please stay. I suddenly love you because you're the main character, and I have to.
Yeah.
And he says, don't worry, doll. One of these days our trails will cross again. And he rides off into the blizzard.
What a line.
And we get a slightly horrifying scene of Flack and Lopez. Micah, please explain what happens to Lopez.
Lopez fucking freezes to death.
On screen,
On
slowly.
He's begging for mercy.
He's begging for his friend Flack to stay with him or give him a blanket. And what does Flack do?
He just leaves him.
He doesn't even just leave. He tears the blanket away from Lopez before walking away, talking about how you're gonna die anyway. Give me the blanket. It's fucked up. It's a fucked up scene.
It is.
And then the climactic scene of the movie. Brett Coleman.
He finally does something.
He finds Flack, the most evil man in history.
In a blizzard.
And the two are facing off. And Brett, sneaking up behind Flack, decides to yell, Flack! to get his attention. Flack turns around, aims the gun at him. But Brett Coleman,
with the fastest
knife in the West, throws a knife into Flack's fucking chest and kills him. Perfectly saving himself from instantaneous death via gun bullets.
Right.
And it's a beautiful scene. And then, you've got the token. He eventually goes back to the girl in the valley in Oregon, and they kiss and they walk into the sunset and all of that goodness.
Yeah. So we've established Zeke is the true hero of the movie, right?
Zeke kills more. He kills the exact same number of villains in way less time. He's not cocky about it. He blows one of them away, saving his friend's life.
Yep.
Brett Coleman just goes out for vengeance.
Yes.
He's not a hero.
No.
He's a bloodthirsty killer. But that's Brett Coleman. That's what he does. Now that's how the movie ends.
Yes.
Now we can get on to the more interesting stuff, Micah. I know you looked up some information about the movie.
Yes.
Please tell me. I need information about this movie. What can you tell me?
So since this movie came out in 1930, it's very
extremely
poor time.
expensive movie.
Yep. $1.2 million budget, which roughly converts to $22 million today.
It's crazy. That's the low end. I saw another article that said the budget could have been as high as $2.5 million.
That is nuts.
Which it literally perfectly doubled.
Yep. Which means
it's
around 50. Around 50 for today.
That would be $50 million in today's money. And it was released in 1930. Now, I don't know if the listeners are students of history or not.
Right. I wonder what big major thing happened at the turn of the decade from the 20s to the 30s. I'm drawing a blank.
I'm drawing a blank. It surely couldn't be the worst economic crash in modern history. And it's just, there's no way.
So, poor timing, really. Unfortunately, they did fail at the box office.
God, that must have stung.
That really, really must have stung.
Must have stung. But what else do we got? It failed at the box office. I've got a fact.
Got a fact.
This shocked me to my core. There's literally 2 individually filmed versions of this movie.
That's right.
We, I believe, because of the runtime, watched the 70mm version that was falling apart. These are old movies. The original film for the 70mm version was literally falling apart in the Library of Congress because they did not have a way to transfer it onto any other kind of film until a man created a unique scanner and printer to copy the 70mm film onto 35mm film. So that is the version we watched. It's about 2 hours long. And naturally you lose a lot.
You do.
When you lose the margins. But what if I told you, Micah, there was another version of that movie that was shot on 35mm and was literally filmed simultaneously, capturing different angles of all of the scenes.
Really?
And that is the one that got released in theaters.
Oh my god.
The one we watched was not released until it was released digitally there, I believe. I believe our watching it is the only place it's been released.
They went through all of that trouble.
They had 20 different cameramen working on this movie the whole time. They made 2 flops.
They did, yeah.
Oh, they shot this movie not just in California. They shot it in 7 different states along the Oregon Trail. They shot it in Arizona, California, Wyoming, Idaho, Montana, Utah, and Oregon.
What's the difference between Idaho and Montana? Let's be real here.
Fucking exactly.
Why do you gotta film in 2 different spots?
Brother, why go to Utah at all?
When you have Arizona.
You got Arizona and Wyoming.
Because they were at the Grand Canyon, weren't they?
Yes, there's a
certainly were.
split-second scene
Yes.
where you see Brett Coleman and a native man crawling through the Grand Canyon,
Right.
where apparently his friend was hunting wolves.
That's right. Yeah.
In the Grand Canyon. He was hunting for wolves in the desert. That desert wolf.
Yes.
Where he was murdered by Flack and Lopez. That's where that happened.
That's right.
Beautiful scene.
Excellent.
That's why they shot in Arizona. I would have cut the scene personally. I wouldn't have filmed it.
Right.
I would have saved all that money but I'm not Raoul, what's his name?
Raoul Walsh. The one-eyed man too.
Have you explained his eye? Please explain to the folks at home what Raoul Walsh looks like and why.
Yes, so Raoul Walsh, he looks like a badass.
He does. Dude, he's so cool.
Badass.
He looks so cool.
So he does have an eye patch, and he obtained this eye patch in probably the most unfortunate way possible. So back early in his acting career, he was on set for some movie or something, and he was riding.
Oh, it happened on set?
I think so. He may have been on set.
Yeah.
But he was riding along in a car, and this jackrabbit jumps in front of him through the windshield in his vehicle and somehow, someway, he lost his right eyeball.
A jackrabbit. Can you imagine you're driving along, cool as fuck, young Hollywood guy cruising on the fucking highway. It's in the 30s, so you're not going that fast. He's probably driving like 40, 50 miles
I
an
think it was
hour.
like the late
Late
1910s, because
1910s.
this is in his acting career.
Cruising down,
Mm-hmm.
flying in a Model A, going 30, 40 miles an hour, and a jackrabbit jumps, breaks your windshield, and sends a rabbit and a shard of glass flying into your eye, blinding you.
Yep.
What the fuck?
I think it's worth it because you got a kick-ass iPad.
Oh, absolutely.
It's
I'd do the
absolute-
same.
Honestly.
But I think that's an event that has occurred exactly one time.
That's the
That's
one
an
time, yes.
injury. That's a hospital report
Yeah.
that I think has been written once.
Yeah.
Most injuries, like, oh, he broke his arm, like skateboarding, or he got a concussion playing football. There's a million of those.
Right.
Blinded by car accident, jackrabbit through windshield, I think has been written once.
That is one for one.
That is spectacular. Do we have any other facts? I think
I got one more fact for you.
one more fact.
As of today, on Rotten Tomatoes, this movie is a 100%. 100%
You know what?
to this day.
For just the scale of the damn thing,
I can see why.
I couldn't give this movie a bad review.
Yeah.
Just because of the scale of it. As if I were a critic, like an actual critic, not just looking for a movie for enjoyment, but for the craft. It's a huge fucking movie, and so much work was put into it from so many people.
Absolutely.
It would be insulting to not give it like
Right.
that high of a rating. But I think we're in the clear. I think we should do a segment. I think we should begin a segment here. And I'm gonna spring this on you.
Okay.
The John Wayne's Words from the West.
Yes.
What did he say that stuck you the most in this movie?
I think this is like one of the first lines he ever said in the movie, right? What is it? What is it? Something along the lines of Brett Coleman is not hard to locate or something like that.
Yeah, he says, well, I won't be hard to locate.
Yeah, that's all.
He says that to one of the villains who wants to kill him.
Yes.
He says, well, I won't be too hard to locate. That is a legendary line.
That is legendary.
Mine was, the villains call him friend. They say, we'll be seeing you around, friend. And to which Brett Coleman responds, you threw too big a loop. You're no friend of mine.
Yes.
Which
Oh
is
my God.
crazy. I've never heard anything like that before.
That was crazy.
And that line was a real high point in the movie for me. That's, I think, my favorite part of writing from the movie. Because the script's not great. It very much just serves a purpose. Except the cards. There are certain cards throughout the movie that interject in between major events and scenes.
Right.
Like a silent film.
Yeah.
And they are the most hardcore shit you will ever read. I'm not gonna spoil them, because I think you should watch this movie just to experience those cards.
Yes.
Because they're fucking unbelievable. They're so hard. They're the most intense shit. But yeah, I think that's the movie. I think we go on to our innovative rating system.
Rating system, yes.
This is a system which ranges from both of us vote, and it's between no thumbs to 2 thumbs up to 2 thumbs down. I'm gonna give this movie 1 thumb up.
I am as well gonna do a 1 thumb up.
Alright, this is a 2 thumbs movie. It's a wonderful start. I
It
think
is.
this is gonna be a beautiful thing. I think we're gonna try and do these weekly, right?
We will try.
That's gonna be the planned order of release. We'll see how that goes.
It
But
probably won't go that way.
it probably won't go that way, but we'll try.
We will.
Eventually, we will finish this contest. We will finish this.
Sometime in the
convinced.
future.
I'm
Yes.
convinced. But the next time we meet, we will be watching the very erotically titled Ride Him Cowboy from 1932.
Whoa.
So I hope to see you all there.